Hello, so I'm going to show you everything that concerns educare pastoral. So let's get on with it. So educare pastoral covers everything from your student discipline to managing your hostel to your disciplinary points, managing your point system to hostel exit. So there's a lot it covers. So let's start with the pastoral setup. So in pastoral setup, the first thing we have is a hostel setup, and under hostel setup, you have a hostel management. This is basically where you come to create your different hostels. To add a hostel, just click on the add hostel, give the hostel name and the capacity of that hostel, and you save. Once you save, it shows up this way. And once it shows up this way, you can now assign rooms to those hostels. If I click on this is where you can create rooms inside the hostel. To add a new room, click on this button, give the name of the room and the capacity of the room, just like that. So basically, this is what you do in the hostel management. You create the hostel and then you create the rooms inside the hostel. So the next is the hostel managers. Hostel managers is where you create the people managing those hostels. That's the house parent, hostel master, hostel mistress, the matron. You create those people that manages the hostel here. So if you select the hostel, then you click on add hostel manager. So you can search for them from depending on the role you created them as. You select it. If they are teachers, you select filter and you can search for them on this list and just add them and save. That is basically how you create it. And you can indicate who is the head of this hostel by clicking on this is head, because there are certain actions that only the head of the hostel can perform. And is security, this part is created so you can also add security here, and you just indicate that this person is a security. So that person can receive email notification, but the security feature is used for hostel exit. So when exit has been approved, the security also gets the exit code. So parent shows the code to the security and the security confirms. That is the only reason this is security is here. So moving on, the next is hostel live comments. So everything from here, hostel live comments, hostel live grade, all of this has to do with the hostel reports. So at the end of the term, as your academic report goes home, some schools also have a comprehensive hostel report. And based on your template, you give it to us. We create that template for you, and this is where we do the setup. So if your school don't use the hostel report that goes home at the end of the term, you don't need this. But hostel life comment, this is where you create the different things that will be assessed in the hostel reports. Then you also have the grade. This is the grade that's going to be assessed using the hostel life comments. Then you have a comment bank where the house parents give their comments. So these are just pre-filled comments that can be picked from when it's been entered. Then this is just the result view settings of the report. Do you want to show the merit points or show the demerit points in the hostel end of term hostel report that goes on? So these are just settings for all of that. Then the next is the disciplinary setup. Under disciplinary setup, we have the disciplinary committee member. So disciplinary setup handles everything about discipline, student discipline, staff reporting students when they misbehave. So in the committee members, all schools have disciplinary committee members. So these are where you put in staff members that handles disciplinary cases when it comes in. So to add same method, click on add member, search for where they are and just add them to the list. Once you add them, they are all here and you can indicate who is the head of the committee. Then you have disciplinary actions. So disciplinary actions handle. So for the disciplinary actions, this is where you create the different disciplinary actions you give out in your school. So we have some here like suspension, expulsion, community service. So to create an action, just click on new action and you give it a name. Whatever the action you take is, you can give it a description, or you can give it a range. Minimum, this point here is for demerit points. So it can be that for suspension, for instance, I can give it a range that, let me see the one that has been done already. Um, I edit this. So for expulsion, for instance, you can give it a range to range from probably probably 20 to 20 to 25. So what this means is if a student has accumulated different demerit points to the point of it being 20, between the range of 20 to 25, then that student, the system would automatically assign expulsion to the student. But that is if you are allowing the system take decision for the school and not you doing it manually. If you're performing these actions manually, you don't need to fill this range, basically. Then another thing I would show is, so in this, you also have where you can fill in custom mail that goes out to parents when these actions are taken. Like if I want to notify parents, I can just type in the message I want the system to automatically send out to parents. So you can also notify special email, notify the class teacher, notify the hostel parents. So these are just templates that you put in here that the system automatically sends to these various people when a child is found wanting for this offense. Then I'll come to behavior and sanctions. Behavior and sanctions is basically where you can go into detail of what that student did. So I can say fighting, I'm taking the merit point to be 4 to 6. I can add different offenses I feel student can be found wanting for in the school. Just add all of them here and put the merit points. And you can also link that action to a sanction. You can link the behavior to a sanction, basically. So and the system can automatically take decisions for you. To add a behavior, you're just clicking on add. You put the behavior's name here. You can link it to a sanction or you select none if you don't want to link it to any sanction. Then you can put the demerit point range associated with that behavior and you save. Then you have the disciplinary settings. So we have different kinds of setting here. Like I told you before, enable head only action. You take this, you enable this when you want only the head of the disciplinary committee to be able to take the final action, like the final decision on any offense that's been reported by the teacher. You also have enable reporter action. So if I enable this, you can see maximum point for self-action. So this means like the demerit point. So if the action in one of these behavior has a demerit point of probably 1 to 2, it means that the person reporting can take action on that behavior without passing through the disciplinary committee members. So that's basically what this means. Then you have enable auto action. It means you're allowing the system take action for you without doing it manually. So automatically, the system will use the behavior sanction and link whatever behavior the child exhibits, be it fighting or class disruption, to the sanction, to the punishment that should be given to that child. So basically, this is you telling the system, take the action for me. I don't want to do it manually. Then you also have enable member recommendation. So when a child is reported, if you're doing it manually, that report goes to members of the committee. And remember, if you enable head only action, only the head of the committee can take the final action for that child. So member recommendation, if it's on, means that you're telling the system you want the members of the committee to recommend a punishment to that child. So before the head of the committee says, take his final decision, his or her final decision, he can see the punishment that has been recommended by other members of the committee before giving his final verdict. So that's basically what this means. Then you also have option to allow hostile parent comment. So you also want the hostile parent to comment on the action of that child. Then we have this enable demerit point. So you have this demerit point system, single, and you have minimum demerit point to dispatch. So what this means is if the child has committed offense, if the demerit point of that child is up to 5 cumulatively, so if the teacher reports a child for probably class disruption and the demerit point is 2, it won't dispatch mail to the committee members. If another offense happens again and that the merit point for that offense is 3, automatically, cumulatively, it has summed up to 5. It dispatches a mail to the committee members. So this is here so that the committee members are not bombarded with mails for a particular student. So you just want to probably attend to the case when the merit point of that child has cumulated to a certain point, basically. So that's what you use this for. But that's for the single. Then you have the groups. The groups means that you want, the group says number of cases that makes a point. So it has nothing to do with demerit points. So what it means is when do you want the system to dispatch the mail? So you can say probably if a child has been reported 5 times, then that's when you dispatch the mail, or 4 or whatever number. So this has nothing to do with demerit points. It's just the number of times that child has been reported. Then you have um, notifications. If I disable this, you've disabled all notifications that goes out. But once you enable it, you have the options. Show all offenses means when a when the system is sending the notifications to the committee members, do you want the system to show the previous offense or just send the current one? So if the previous offense has not been attended to, it can add all of them to the mail that is being sent. Or do you want it to just send the current one? That's what this means. Then mail committee members on new reports. Do you want the committee members to be mailed on every new report? That's when you put this on. Notify special email. If there's an email that is not part of the um, committee members, the disciplinary committee members, you can just add those emails here. You can add more than one. Add those emails here, and those emails too will also be receiving the reports as it is sent. Then this is where you can set the minimum demerit points to dispatch, to start dispatching mail to this special mail, and you can also set the maximum points to stop sending mail, the reports to that mail as well. So here you can choose to notify the parents, also notify the class teacher, or notify the hostel parent. So this is everything on the disciplinary settings. Then we have leadership roles. Leadership roles is basically where you can create the different roles you have in your school. Um, just click on add roles and type the name of the roles, and that is it, and you save. I'll show you where you can apply it later under the pastoral students. Then you have pastoral head. So pastoral head is where you add the head of the pastoral. So whoever you add on this list has access to every single sub-module here. And people added under the hostel managers have access to certain areas that concerns the role they play. So the only people that have access to the pastoral module are hostel managers and the pastoral heads. So the pastoral head, you can also indicate who is the head of the pastoral. You can add more than one person here, but indicate who is the head. And the reason for this is there are certain things that only the head can take final action in. So this is it for the pastoral head. Then you have pastoral house setup. This is basically where you come to create the different houses you have in the school. Put in the house name, select the house color, and you can just type the house color name. So the next is the house master. This is where you assign the house master for each of the houses that you've created. So basically what you want. So we have the exit setting. Exit setting, of course, exit is used for parents coming to pick up their child during school hours. So this is where you do the settings. Enable head only approval. It means when an exit request is done, exit request can be done by either the house parent, the house master, house mistress, the head of pastoral can set up, can initiate an exit request on behalf of a parent as well, and the parent themselves can initiate an exit request for their child. And once this is done, it goes to the head or to the pastoral to approve or reject. So if you enable this head only approval, it means only the head of the pastoral can approve or reject um, an exit request. If you enable notify house parent on exit approval, it means that once it is approved, the house parents are notified. If you enable this as well, notify parents on exit approval, also the parents are notified by email. Then you can also notify pastoral head on new requests. So this is if other members of the pastoral team have the access to approve requests. Once it is approved, it means that the head of the pastoral must also be notified on that approval. So that is what you have here. Then you have pastoral report setup. This is basically if you have a pastoral template which is used in-house. It varies for schools. Some schools do, some schools don't. If you have, this is basically where we come to do the template installation. And once we've done it, the setup is just going to be created here for you. So I won't dwell much on this. Then you have pastoral roll call. Pastoral roll call is basically where you can come and create different kind of roll calls you do in your pastoral. Some we have here is hostel attendance, prep attendance, bus call. So when you're creating it, you just put the name of the roll call, the description, and if it's double period is done twice in a day. So this is where you just create those things. Then you have the point system set up. If you have your merit and demerit point system, this is where we come to create it. Some schools have a system whereby students start up the session with an opening point. You come here, create the opening point, and you have different things the child does that adds up to their points. So it depends. It varies for different schools. So depending on how your school runs your pastoral system, that's what we just built for you basically. So all these parts are very customizable, including the award system. At what points will the student have accumulated for them to have different awards? So it depends on how your school runs basically. But when we figure all that out, we build all of that for you in the pastoral part of the system. So that's basically everything in the pastoral setup. So the pastoral dashboard is basically bringing everything you have together in one view. So I can, from this view, access the pastoral students, mentor comments, hostel students, and all of that. So anyone I click to, I click on pastoral students, you can see it has moved me to pastoral students. But I can as well just come here to click on pastoral students. So let's go straight to pastoral student. Pastoral student involves all the students in the school, both your day and boarding students. So to populate the pastoral student list, all I need to do is click on this sync students. And what it does is it fetches all the active students in your school and populates them here. So if a new student is added to the school and you can't find the students on this pastoral, just click on sync and it fetches all the existing active students and populates them here. Then at this point, you can assign leadership roles to students based on the role they occupy in the school, and you can assign them to their houses as well. So this is where you can do all of this. Then you have the pastoral reports. So like I told you, this is where the pastoral, so at the end of the term, the pastoral, as academic report goes home, pastoral report also um, goes, sorry, not pastoral, hostel report also goes home. So there's a part in the hostel report. If your hostel report also involves where the head of pastoral should enter a comment. This is where the head of pastoral comes and give her comment on that report. So that is just what this is. Then you also have pastoral remark. Pastoral remark is the one I told you is inbuilt. It's used by some schools. It's not used by some schools. So based on how your template is, that is what we build for you at this point. So this part of the system is highly customizable depending on what your pastoral remark in your school entails. You also have pastoral discipline. So pastoral discipline is the one that is very interesting. That has to do with the disciplinary setup. So any staff member can report any child. Once a child is reported, it comes here, and at a glance you can see. So I can see this child. So for instance, this child was reported by this staff member. Let me just view the detail of this report. This is the student reported, and the report was making noise in the class, and a demerit point was deducted from the student. The report was from this staff member, and it was reported on this date and time. And the disciplinary action is committee service, and the remark is to pick papers around the block. So this report has come in now. So to start on this report, you need to already the action has been decided. Suspension, it depends. This is just a demo site. So if you want to track this report, someone needs to be tracked to track if this child has started the activity, the punishment. So you can set this from pending to in progress. If this child is carrying out the punishment given to the child, once the child is done with it, you can move it to completed, and you save it, and that is it. So once the child has completed the punishment, you can click on to receive the child. It means that you can give a reason here that probably the punishment has been completed, and you select the date and the time the child completed this punishment, um, served punishment, or served punishment. So once I update, so you can see this is the person that confirmed that this child has completed the punishment given to them. So you can see the name of the person would be here, and also the date and time the person confirmed and the punishment has been carried out. So to close this case, you can see the status is open. All you need to do is click on the open and you proceed. Yes, and automatically the case has been closed. So everything about this case has been handled. So basically, this is where the pastoral comes to go through every case that has been reported and either close the case or you leave it open if it's still being reviewed. So that's everything on pastoral discipline. We also have hostel students. So hostel students, this is where you can import students into the hostels they belong to. So if a new session, I want to add students into the hostel, for instance, in the high school, I'll select the hostel, junior boys hostel. If I filter this, it filters only people already in the hostel. So if I want to add students into this hostel, new student, I'll click on import students and select probably the class those students are. If they're in year 7, I can just select year 7, all arms and filter. And all I need to do is select the students. I can search for their name and select, or I can just select them. Once you select them, you can just click on import and you import them into the hostel. So it's that straightforward to import the students into their hostel, and you can also assign them to their rooms, or you can automatically assign them to the rooms by clicking on the auto assign before you import them into the hostel, and the system will automatically assign them to vacant rooms. And of course, once they are assigned, you can still come to edit the rooms if you wish to. So that is it for the hostel students. And you also have hostel daily reports. So hostel daily report is where the head of the hostels come to give their daily reports about things that happen in the hostel. It can be about students or general maintenance in the hostel. So this is basically where they come to give their report all of those things. So if you want to add a comment, they just click on add comments and type in their comments. Once they save, the date and the time is archived. So the head of pastoral just comes here to see all comment that has been entered by different hostel managers. So we have the exec request. So the exec request is basically when parents or house parents make requests, exec requests for students in their care, the request comes here. So the head of pastoral sees this. They can view the details, see the student being requested exec for the reason for the request, the date and time the parent wants to come pick up the child, and the proposed return date and time. So they can either accept, approve this request, or they can decline it with a reason. So once you do, automatically the parent is getting notification informing them either their request has been approved or if it has been declined. So basically, this is where all of those things happen. So hostel live comments is basically the report that goes on at the end of the session. So this is where the house parent comes to fill in those reports that goes home to parents. So this is just where they fill it. When all of this is filled, they have a comment bank where they can pick comments and edit if they at their will. So when they fill this and process it, the holistic report is prepared for the hostel. So that is what that is. Then you have the hostel manager's reports. So this is where the hostel manager can come and give holistic, detailed reports about a student. So any activity, any behavior a student exhibits in the hostel manager can just come here and archive the information on what that student has done. So it was very quiet on the go, so it tends to help well. So you can just be giving reports on a particular student, and over time, all the reports is just archived on that student profile so that anytime in the future you can open that student profile and see all the report that has been given for that child because the person that gave the report will be there and the date and time that person gave the report is also there. And of course, at any point you can export the comments and have it. So anytime you need to call up that child in the future and see how the child hostel life has been, you can open all the report that has been entered by the hostel managers. So that's it for the manager's daily reports. So you also have the point entry. The point entry is basically where you can enter merit point or demerit point. So it depends on what you want to use it for. So you can just click on award points and you select the student you want to award the points for and you just select the term and the point you want to award, the reason for awarding those points, and you indicate the day you are awarding this point and you submit. So the system is just adding the points for the students. So you have the point gain and the point loss. You can view the detail. You can export an Excel sheet, the merit points, or you can also export the demerit points. So all of this part of the system is fully customizable depending on how your school runs your merit and demerit point system. So there's also activity points. All of this depends on what your school does. It varies for different schools, but if your school have activity points, point your award for different activity a child does, this is basically where we come to create all of those things. So you have the point analysis where you can analyze the point for the entire time or for the entire session. So depending on what a student has done, if I select first term for instance and filter this, I can analyze all the points a child has gotten for different activity that he did. And you still see the points, total point loss, total point gain, and the total point the student has accumulated. So like I said, all of these are customizable. You also have the mentor reports. The mentor report is where mentors assigned to their various child can come and give comments on the kids they mentor. And of course, once you view, you can see those observations are tied to terms and subterms, and you can enter your observation. So this part is also customizable based on what mentors in your school are supposed to do and the kind of reports they're supposed to give. for a child. So pastoral attendance as well. So the pastoral attendance covers all kinds of attendance. So if you remember in the setup here, we created different kinds of attendance. Hostel attendance, if I want to take an attendance, I'm just going to say, okay, yes, select for the high school for junior boys hostel. Once I click on take attendance, it opens the attendance sheets. So I can either, if everyone is around, I can just mark all of them present. Or if I want to mark specific people, I can just select them and mark them present, or mark them late, or mark them absent. So this is basically where we have the roll call. You can take the roll call that you've created in the setup. So I don't know if this helps. So this is just an overview of everything that the pastoral entails. Feel free to reach out to the support team if you need help in certain areas or help in customizing some of the places. We'll be very glad to assist you. Thank you very much for your time.